Well, we didn't call it the Dibie Award then. We called it the DCS Service Award. And it was given to George for his tireless work educating the entertainment industry about motion picture lighting. After the passing of George, we decided to memorialize him by naming the award after him. So this is now referred to as the Dibie Award. And this year, we're proud to recognize John Gresch. Let me tell you a little bit about John, like you don't already know him. But he was also a good friend. Both of these fellows were good friends of George. John just recently retired after 35 years with ARRI. During that time, he was instrumental in the deployment of the hugely successful, much to the chagrin of all the other manufacturers here, the Sky Panel, the whole family of them, and many before that. So he's overseen a vast technological evolution in motion picture lighting, but the reason that we want to honor him today is his passion to educate people about all this technology. To help award him this honor, he's asked his good friend Donald A. Morgan, ASC, who, like John, was also a good friend of George's. And like George, Mr. Morgan's core work has been in episodic television, from Maude, One Day at a Time, Home Improvement, and more recently, The Ranch and Lopez, and The Connors. He's received an incredible, 11, 12 Emmy Awards, Primetime Emmy Awards?
11.
And been nominated 21 times.
Yes. Thank you.
Also, he was recently inducted into the Television Hall of Fame, and a couple years back, he was awarded the ASC Career Achievement in Television Award.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
these guys both have some good George stories. I'd like to hear that. I'd like to hear about all the technological changes that you've seen in your career and your background, how you rose up through the ranks and breaking barriers, of course. Let's start out with the award. So I'm going to ask Mr. Morgan to actually present this award. I can hold the mic for you. Maybe that'll work. Well,
here, I'll hold it.
Yeah, you go.
The DCS Dibie Award is presented to John Gresch by Digital Cinema Society in grateful recognition and decades of service and education the entertainment lighting community. March 18th, 2023. Congratulations, my brother.
Get that.
Right on, right on.
All right, so you can hang on to that. Thank you very much.
Tell us about some of the technology.
Sure. So, I hung my first light 54 years ago. Now, granted, I was still in school. It was a theatrical arrangement. And I'm not going to give you the entire lineage. But when I was introduced to motion picture lighting, which was, of course, the focus of ARRI, I could see the greater application of what could be done for lighting than what I had been aware of for the standard theatrical lighting. There had been a lot that had changed between theatrical lighting and concert lighting, from using park cans and ellipsoidals to using moving lights. But when I was introduced to motion picture lighting, the moving lights was not accepted to the style that they wanted for their lighting, and I was curious why that was. And the tradition that was used with most of the equipment was upheld, and there was very strong, should we say, footprint in terms of what most people were doing in motion picture production. I was introduced to George about the same time that you brought up, the mid-'80s, so it was before I started at ARRI. And so he was always one of my mentors. He, too, was actually my sponsor into the ASC as an associate member. But George would always say, don't get caught up in the politics, sexy. Focus on what you're doing with the equipment, the technology. Focus on educating the team. And so the changes that we saw was first and foremost in the HMI market. And as you said, Don, you were one of the people to buy the 4,000 watt units when they came onto the market. But whether you were buying an ARRI unit or a competitive brand, the being able to harness the versatility of what could happen with this particular lamp source was a good focus of my first 10 years with the company. And we introduced a very small HMI par called the Pocket Par in the late 90s. And I saw how portable it was. I put it in just a small satchel, put it in my over my shoulder, and ran around everywhere you could in town. In those days, you could get into the studios on an easy basis. I could go visit Dwight without a whole lot of difficulty getting through the gate. And it was that way all the way until 9/11, as you all know. And so it was relatively easy compared to now to go, hey, look at this, hey, look at this, hey, look at this, as long as you weren't doing it during the middle of the shot. So harnessing all the way through to the ARRI Max came out, which was in 2005. The generational changes, and I could spend all day talking about the details of what made each fixture better, whether it was an ARRI fixture or whether it was the fixtures that were manufactured by the late, great Wally Mills or LTM or any number of people that were out. It was a limited amount of competition compared to what we see with all of the LED manufacturers today. So between the 4 or 5 of us, we were always seeing what we could do to do it better. The HMI lamp was introduced just before the '72 Olympics in Munich. So that technology is still going strong. We still don't have LED replacement for everything we do with HMIs. And that's quite an arc in terms of being able, no pun intended, or maybe pun was intended, but that's really quite an arc of this technology from 1972 all the way to now, and will continue for a while longer. But we all know that there's a downside of what that technology is, and that's why everybody's looking for improvements. The next wave of new technology, of course, was the LED. Now, Frieder had a wonderful run with the fluorescents in between there. I don't mean to minimize that, but we at ARRI did not get overly involved with the fluorescent lighting. But with all of the LED products, people ask me, well, who was the first one to bring an LED product onto a television show? And Color Kinetics would like to take the credit for that, for some of the game show work where they brought it into the set pieces. But everybody was trying to be there. And it was wonderful to be part of that arc and have such success with the Sky Panel family that we did have over those years.
You accepted an Emmy Award,
I did.
Engineering Emmy Award
I
for
did.
the Sky Panel.
That was
ARRI.
one of the benefits of COVID. All of the folks from Germany were not allowed to travel in order to receive the award. So I got this call, and they said, would you accept the award on our behalf? And I said, sure, I'll make sure that's exactly how I word it. And it was quite wonderful, not just to be the one to receive it on behalf of the engineers and all the people behind that product, but also to see the recognition. You may or may not know this, but the Motion Picture Academy, who has the brand that works, has the division that works on technical achievement, have had a very difficult time figuring out how to award LED-based products. Whereas when they awarded for HMI with the ARRI Max, which was the first HMI to be honored, the committee was prepared to work on that. So we still haven't really established ourselves as an industry of the right way to corral a lot of the technology and what should we say, the testing procedures that happens with the LED.
Well, I know you have some good George stories. Pick a couple of the most colorful.
Oh, the most colorful. Well, I
sexy.
may
You can't say
get
anymore.
in trouble if I tell some of the ones that are the most colorful here. But do you want to go first?
Well, I know that there's always one thing that he would always whisper in my ear. He goes, "Do you smell good?" And I go, "George, and he goes, that's the best way to lose a job when you go up to your leading lady or the executive producer and you don't smell good." So I always, and that always is in the back of my head.
And show up early, half hour early.
I always do that.
Well, George always practiced what he preached. I was able to see George about a month and a half before he passed at the celebration of life of his good friend and my former partner, Joe Tawil. And George came with his walker, and he came in, I went up to him, and I tell you, he always maintained the best possible example of what you just said, even at age 90, whatever he was. So God bless him.
God bless him.
His stories were as flagrant as probably his particular perfume was at that time. He would have a way of not holding back to what he was saying. This is a true story during the ASLD years. We would occasionally meet on Saturday mornings. This time it was at Paramount. And he would carefully select who the speakers were going to be, which manufacturers. There were fewer speakers than you have today. And so it was going to feature Mario DeSisti, who I knew during the days of when he was building lights for E and Aero and then went on to have his own line. But he had asked Ari to come to show the latest camera. And Bill Russell, who was in charge of camera sales at that time, asked me to come along and put a few lights in the car, unbeknownst to me that this was Mario DeSisti's day. So we get there on the stage, and it's so-and-so's going to start, and so-and-so's going to be next, and so forth. And he yells out to Bill. He said, Bill, so who else do you have with you from Ari for today? And he says, I have John from the lighting division. He yelled out without missing a beat, screw him, sexy, which brought down the house because he, of course, didn't want to get on Mario's bad list for having another side. So George reveled in this particular line of getting such a big laugh from this. For years, he would still come up and rib me about that. So that's the way that George never held back, and he got away with it. So,
No, go
okay.
ahead.
I remember when George asked Bill and I to come to Hawaii with him. It's only one of two times I ever went to Hawaii on the company dime. And he said, don't get caught up in the politics of what I'm doing. I'm going for the union. As you know, he was president of Local 600. He would say, just sell your product and educate the people. It was always about take the time to educate. So we had this wonderful couple of days with the union out there, working with all of the people in that structure in Hawaii while George was doing his thing. And he would always give a call. He actually called this guy more than he called me, but he called me quite often to say, I'm doing this thing here, I'm doing this thing there, we need you to come on out and be part of it. But you were on his panels quite often.
Yeah, at the ASC, we would do one a month for the kids. The college would come in town and be there to mentor, talk to them. And he would sit directly in the middle and take charge. And if you didn't ask questions, he'd put you on the spot, which is great. Yeah.
So there's a debt of gratitude for George, obviously. There's a debt of gratitude for Bill Klages, who's still with us, but, you know, he's quite up there in years. Many of the other people who were part of this initial wave that we all give back to the industry, no matter what age somebody is, no matter what expertise level they may have. I had the good fortune, and still do with the 728 GAVR Union, to have taught classes on the HMI safety and training. And what I learned, nobody who's been in a business practicing for all these years wants to admit that there's something more that they can learn, but we all know there is, especially with today's technology of what's going on. And so that's a big part of what I continue to do, and I'm happy to share with everybody that in my departure, my retirement from ARI, they asked me to take charge of a mentorship program as a format of an internship. And so we will be offering at ARI an internship that will be very much part of my reconnection, if you will, to people over the years.
Excellent.
Very much in keeping with your educational
Absolutely.
passion.
Yeah, and so it's a big thing. But George taught me well, Joe Tawil taught me well, Bill Klages taught me well.
So I guess we could wrap it up now, unless you have any last points.
I
you'd
just
like
want to
make?
say thank you very much, James.
Oh, thank you.
And this is always fun to give back, and we're all a nice little community, and let's keep it going, for sure.
Excellent. Thanks for all you do, James. Thank you.